One of the beautiful things about art is its ability to communicate without words. And this is the reason why I think art is so essential to our human experience. It's a way of engaging and communicating deep, profound thoughts that sometimes we struggle to use words to do that. And so over the course of the next couple of months, every 4 or 5 weeks, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sharing a new series with you where I'm going to be sharing the moments and the ways in which consuming art in different forms has not only transformed me, but have informed my transformational process, because there is so much richness in anything that helps us to tune in to that richness of the human experience. This is Monterastelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 614, originally aired June 5th, 2024. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to spend with me. Thanks for showing up and listening and tapping along with us. Now, years ago, I was interviewed for a podcast about the Holy Spirit. And it was about my spiritual experience. And in that engagement and in that conversation, we also started talking about art. And the reason when I was having a conversation about the Holy Spirit moving in my life and art is because my experience with art and my experience with the Holy Spirit are experiential that oftentimes communicate things that I struggle to put words to. This came home for me in a profound way for the first time when I was in the home of Oswaldo Guayasamín. Oswaldo was an Ecuadorian painter, and after his death, his home was turned into a museum. And years ago, I had spent a month studying Spanish in Ecuador and got a chance to visit this museum. And there was a wall of paintings that as I was standing in front of them, tears just started streaming down my face. It was the first time I've ever experienced that in art. In a future episode, we're actually going to dive into his artwork specifically and what I figured out what was moving inside of that. And it's not just with images. Music can do the exact same thing, where it can just stir us so deeply, where it makes us feel things. Or when we're watching a story, reading a book, where the story is giving us an opportunity, not through our own experience, but someone else's experience as they live in real time, for us to be able to connect with and understand our own experience in a different way. And so that's what we're going to do in this series. We're going to explore and see how we can bring those ideas, those experiences to our transformational work and to our tapping to create an even deeper, more profound experience. If you are new to tapping, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, all you need to do is follow the little arrow in the upper right-hand corner. That is going to take you to learn2tap.com. At learn2tap.com, what you're going to do is you're going to get an opportunity to see this amazing tool firsthand. It's something I use every single day for myself. I use it regularly with my clients, and it is going to create transformation for you in easy, simple ways. So just follow that little red arrow, and you'll get all of the information right away. So as we go through this, you're going to be able to dive in deeper. I really love going to the movies. And over the course of the last number of years, two of my favorite cinematic experiences was getting a chance to see part 1 and part 2 of Dune by the director Denis Villeneuve. And they are just breathtaking, spectacular stories that are just beautiful to see. If you have not seen them, I really encourage you to dive in. And if you're going to do it, put your phone away, don't fold laundry, be completely present to it, because they're really, really special. And because these movies were so special, and because a number of people in my life really loved the books that they were written off of, I decided to dive into Frank Herbert's work, and I downloaded the audiobook. And so over the course of the last number of weeks, I have been listening to the audiobook version of this while I've been at the sauna every single day. And like in many cases, as wonderful as the movies are, the books are richer because it gives us a chance to engage with stuff in different ways. So if you are unfamiliar with the Dune story, it's set about 10,000 years into the future. And the main character is a young man by the name of Paul. Now, there are 3 things that you need to know about Paul that's going to be pertaining to the conversation that we're going to have today. Number 1, Paul's mother was part of a spiritual order called the Bene Gesserit. And they are working throughout the entire universe with a very particular goal in mind. But because of their spiritual disposition, they are well trained in understanding human psychology and being able to read body language and emotion. And they're very, very good that when they're having their own emotional experience, that they're able to quiet their emotions down, quiet what is going on in their body so they can assess what is going on and they can be safe. So Paul has received comprehensive training from his mother. Number two, Paul's father is the duke of one of the great houses in the universe. And Paul is on a path one day through the line of succession to take the place of his father. Number three, Paul's father is killed. And as Paul's father is killed and the government is overthrown, Paul and his mother escape. And the planet they are on is a planet called Arrakis, which is a giant desert, to the point that people wear suits so they can recapture the moisture coming out of their breath and the sweat off of their body so they can drink that water later, because that's how valuable water is. So for most of the second half of the first movie and all of the second movie, Paul has found himself out in the desert. And it is a harsh, harsh place. And not only is the desert harsh, Dune signature character are these giant sandworms that are 150 meters long, whose mouths are 40 meters wide, that eat entire vehicles and mining equipment as they go. And so as they are navigating and trying to fend for their lives, as the government, as the people who are trying to overthrow their government are trying to kill them, and they're dealing with these elements, and constantly, because we can get inside, because it is a book, Paul's head and Paul's body, you hear him as he's responding to what is going on. You hear him recognizing the tension in his body from fear and how he needs to calm it down. He recognizes the rate of his own breathing and stilling it so he can be present. He recognizes when people are saying things to be able to see through them to what's actually going on, not what they're perceiving. And so he's using these tools that his mother has given him to create a proportionate, well-informed emotional response, which is exactly the way I describe and I approach tapping. That he's noticing what is going on and how his emotions are getting the best of him, and he's trying to put them into a place that is useful for him. And so at one point, and this is something that's referred to a number of times because it's a very specific spiritual litany, that when Paul is in a circumstance in which he is encountering fear, like when they're in their orthocopter, which is a kind of helicopter that looks more like a dragonfly, and they're flying into the sandstorm, what he does to calm himself is he starts saying this amazing litany. And this is what the litany says. And he uses it multiple times throughout the books. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. When we go into fiction, we find these stories, we find these nuggets that speak truths because the author has the liberation to talk about something outside of our cultural context. And so he took this engagement with fear and he gave it spiritual vocabulary. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to take this little litany and we're going to expand it out, and we're just going to create a really, really simple tapping sequence. So if you're available, if you can do it, I'd encourage you to tap along with me. Just tap from point to point in the order that makes sense to you. And if you're in a circumstance where you're loud and it feels safe, what I want you to do is repeat after me, saying the phrases out loud so you can engage with this even more. Tap on the side of the hand, nice big deep breath. I must not fear, especially in a disproportionate way. Fear is simply pointing out danger. But oftentimes my subconscious mind overreacts. Fear is the mind killer. Because when I experience fear, fear always wins. Fear comes from my subconscious mind, trying to point out danger so I can be safe as I navigate the world. But when I feel fear, fear is the only thing I feel, which makes it hard for me to think. Fear is the little death that brings total obliviation. Because when I only act out of fear, I act only in a short-term way. I overreact. I overcorrect. Or I completely freeze up and don't act at all, which makes it difficult, if not impossible, to move forward. I will face my fear. Fear is just information that is coming from my subconscious mind, letting me know what might be dangerous. I will permit it to pass over me and through me, because I'm not defined by my fear. I am not my fear. Fear is just a piece of information from my emotional guidance, helping me to see danger. I can hear the fear, and I can let it go. And when it is gone, I will turn my inner eye to see its path. Because when I feel fear, fear is telling me a story. About how I interpret the world in my subconscious mind. And so as I release the fear, I see the lesson the fear is trying to tell, and I can let go of the story that is no longer useful. When the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Like Gary Craig said, when we tap, when we release and process these emotions, we are free of that moment. Only I will remain. Because I am not my emotions. I'm not my emotional experience. I am not defined by my emotions. My emotions are not my identity. As I feel the emotions and let them go, what is left behind is me, and my work is only releasing the stories that are no longer useful, where only I will remain. Nice big deep breath. So, a little bit of an esoteric approach to healing and transformation. But for me, again, when I bump into something like that, and I can feel some truth connected to it, I find that bringing it to my tapping and exploring gives me an opportunity to go deeper with that. And that's all I did here, is I just took each of the phrases that would have been an appropriate tapping session all by itself, and then I just explored, what did it feel like that meant to me? What is the truth that I want myself to know that is coming in the form of this art? So, like I said, not the most direct constructed way for us to do tapping, not as functional and as organized as most of the stuff as I create, but sometimes these sorts of things are good and useful as well. If you found that tapping useful, go back, tap along to it again. It's something that's kind of nice to engage with on that particular level. And open your eyes. You don't have to use this particular piece of art. There's art that speaks to you. What's the emotional story that it's speaking to you? Why is it resonating? If something that you are consuming is resonating with you emotionally, it is telling you a truth about you. And it's an opportunity for you to safely to continue to explore that. I would love to hear the pieces of art that resonate with you in that particular way. What are the stories it tells you? And maybe we even feature it in a podcast in the future where we take the ideas that you have shared so we can continue to grow and as we see this amazing stuff. If you found this useful and you know someone in your life who might also appreciate this, please pass this along. Our marketing budget is your word of mouth. There's someone in your life who needs to hear this today. And even if they don't hit play after you send it to them, the fact that you've reached out to this person and said, hey, I know this might be useful for you today, the fact that you are thinking of them is going to make their day better, which makes their world better, which makes the world better. And that is cheesy, cheesy, cheesy. It's cheesy every time I say it. I point it out because it feels so cheesy, but I also don't want to undermine it because it really is true. It is that simple for us to make a difference in the world. Find someone, help them in that simple, small way. As you're looking at the screen right now, you can see the playlist of all the previous podcast episodes. Click on that playlist, go back, consume the other stuff, and I look forward to talking to you and tapping with you again real soon. Bye-bye.